The Jewish calendar runs on its own rhythm. There are some months that are chock full of holidays. We'll see the first month of the year as Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and then shortly following the end of Sukkot, Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah, and on and on and on. Other times of the year, there may just be one major holiday on the full moon in the middle of the month. The month of Av, which is near the middle of the summer, is a slow month in some ways. It's a month of mourning because it builds to the 9th of Av, the major fast day commemorating the destruction of the temple. In recent years, a new holiday has been resurrected called the 15th of Av. It used to be a mating ritual day in Jewish life and Jewish culture that has been reclaimed as a kind of Jewish Valentine's Day. And so the 15th of Av now is there. And then after that, you've got the beginning of the month of Elul, what's called Rosh Chodesh, the first of the month, the new moon. And then the month of Elul really doesn't have major holidays. In some ways, it's the rabbi's relief. We get to write our sermons. We get to do what we need to do. Of course, there aren't 0 holidays because there's never a blank space in the rabbinic calendar. There's always this holiday called Shabbat every 7 days. But the focus of Elul, this space in the calendar, is not to look at the Torah portion of the week, which you can do on Shabbat, not to attend daily prayer services, which are offered 3 times a day in the Orthodox world. What Elul gives you is a space to think, to reflect on the end of the year and the beginning of the year, and what happened in that year, and with whom it happened during that year. Traditionally, there are a series of prayers and readings that are prescribed for this month of Elul, and they're called slichot. If you went to Jewish summer camp, you might know that the word slicha means I'm sorry, or excuse me, or forgive me. Now, these slichot prayers are generally directed up or beyond. They are not directed at each other. They are not directed within. They are asking God for forgiveness. They're apologizing to God for transgressions. They're hoping that God will let you have a new beginning. So I'll share with you just a couple examples of those. And as we understand, in a humanistic Jewish congregation, our focus is not on above and beyond. It's on here and now. It's on within ourselves and our connections to each other. So I'm going to read to you 2 of these psalms that are read as part of these slichot recitations. And it may not be our cup of tea, but what I do want to ask you, and I'm interested in your thoughts, is what might be a humanistic Jewish parallel or a way you could take that theme and adapt it, a jazz riff on that original melody to make it more relevant in a humanistic context. And so with that, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll take a look at Psalm 27. The Lord, the Hebrew God, Yahweh, the Lord is my light and my help. Whom should I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Whom should I dread? When evil men assail me to devour my flesh, it is they, my foes and my enemies, who stumble and fall. Should an army besiege me, my heart would have no fear. Should war beset me, still I would be confident. One thing I ask of the Lord, only that do I seek, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord, to frequent his temple. He will shelter me in his pavilion on an evil day, grant me the protection of his tent, raise me high upon a rock. Now is my head high over my enemies round about. I sacrifice in his tent with shouts of joy, singing and chanting a hymn to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud, have mercy on me, answer me. In your behalf, my heart says, seek my face, O Lord, I seek your face. Do not hide your face from me. Do not thrust aside your servant in anger. You have always been my help. Do not forsake me. Do not abandon me, O God, my deliverer. Though my father and mother abandon me, the Lord will take me in. Show me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my watchful foes. Do not subject me to the will of my foes, for false witness and unjust accusers have appeared against me. Had I not the assurance that I would enjoy the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living? Look to the Lord, be strong and of good courage. Oh, look to the Lord. So what do we do with that?
God and is an all-knowing being. So that's what it brings. Those are the memories that it brings to me from that life and the education.
Sure.
At the time.
But what do we do with it?
Okay.
What do you think, Rick?
What can I do to find the strength and courage to deal with the things I have to deal with in my life? And who can I look to for support and help in dealing with stressful situations?
Great. So if we don't look up, who do we look for here? If this is relying on something else, some other being to intervene or to provide support, maybe we need other people that we can address those requests, needs, hopes towards. I like the line near the end, be strong and of good courage. It's encouragement. We all need encouragement. We all need, that motivation, that push, that enthusiasm to help us when we are in a dark space. And so this is offering hope by supernatural intervention. We can't do that, but we can still offer the encouragement of be strong and of good courage. Sometimes just that exhortation will move someone forward.
It also feels like you don't have the strength. You got to look up to get the strength. You don't have it inside.
Right. So we might focus more on drawing the strength from inside ourselves, not only relying on something beyond. That's right. That's right. So we would have to do a kind of inversion of this. We might say it almost in an opposite way. I am my light and my help. You are my light and my help. I don't have to fear. Our community is the stronghold of life. So you have to do a sort of find replace function through there with what are the things that, and it may be that some of the lines don't work. That there are things that God is expected to do that are just not reasonable to expect the community or another person or even yourself to do. So not everything is salvageable, but maybe there's some other ways we can meet those human needs focused on the human level. So let's take a look at Psalm 32. And you can see why this one is recited during a period where you're apologizing to God and hoping for supernatural forgiveness. Happy is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered over. Happy is the man whom the Lord does not hold guilty, and in whose spirit there is no deceit. As long as I said nothing, my limbs wasted away for my anguish roaring all day long. For night and day your hand lay heavy on me. My vigor waned as in the summer drought, Selah. Then I acknowledged my sin to you. I did not cover up my guilt. I resolved, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave me of my sin, Selah. Therefore, let every faithful man pray to you upon discovering his sin, that the rushing mighty waters not overtake him. You are my shelter. You preserve me from distress. You surround me with the shouts of deliverance, Selah. Let me enlighten you and show you which way to go. Let me offer counsel. My eye is on you. Be not like a senseless horse or mule whose movement must be curbed by bit and bridle. Far be it from you. Many are the torments of the wicked, but he who trusts in the Lord shall be surrounded with favor. Rejoice in the Lord and exult, all you righteous. Shout for joy, all upright men. Anything to salvage here, or to reframe, or to redirect in some way?
Maybe instead of asking the Lord for forgiveness, ask the person you did wrong.
Okay, so instead of looking to get God's forgiveness, let's talk to the people that these transgressions were against, and then hope that they will offer forgiveness. What else might we draw on from this? I see also in some ways you can think of God in this passage like a conscience or a sense of guilt that's internalized. If I said nothing, I felt depressed, I felt withdrawn, I felt cut off from other people. I felt a heavy hand laying on me. It's the hand of guilt. It's the hand of conscience. It doesn't have to be a supernatural being that's making us feel that way. And then when you acknowledge it, now, again, we wouldn't use the word sin, right? But when we acknowledged our failings and we didn't cover it up, we might get forgiveness. We might feel lighter because we don't have that internalized burden of conscience and guilt that's dragging with us everywhere we go. You know, the rushing mighty waters could be those waters of depression or isolation or anger. And so we have to resist them in our own way. And then the other thing we could do here, this could be an expression of gratitude to those people who do support us. What if you said to someone who is meaningful to you, "You are my shelter. You preserve me from distress. You surround me with the joyous shouts of deliverance." Do you have anybody in your life that helps to do that? Maybe not exactly that way. I don't know about shouts of deliverance, but certainly someone who provides you with those supports. And so maybe part of that process of acknowledging failing is also to acknowledge support and help and to offer gratitude to those people who are important in your life. And then, of course, the idea of enlightenment, of learning which way to go and learning from other people. That's also part of this passage. Again, projected above and beyond, but we can humanize it or humanisticize it into focused on the people that teach us and provide us with insight into our condition and motivation and inspiration for the future. So these are just a couple of examples of those traditional passages that could give us an opportunity to reflect differently and to think about how we forgive, how we need forgiveness, how we can repair relationships. This is a time of apology and forgiveness, where you go to people you wronged and ask for their forgiveness. That's your apology to them, and they offer forgiveness to you, and then vice versa. And sometimes tradition is very demanding on this. One thing that Maimonides writes about, and we'll look at a passage by him in just a moment, is that you have to make yourself available to somebody who has wronged you so that they have the opportunity to ask for your forgiveness. Not many people will willingly do that, to willingly put themselves in the presence of someone who has wronged them, to give that person the opportunity to apologize and thus repair the relationship. It's demanding, but you can imagine it could also be cathartic and healing and really important for that relationship. We also remember that in a humanistic context, we're not looking for divine forgiveness, we're looking for human forgiveness. We're not looking for a supernatural release of guilt. That's something we have to process internally in a kind of self-forgiveness and self-judgment. Now, we also have to realize that there is a fine line between what's appropriate to talk about in a congregational setting and what belongs in the therapist's office, right? So in talking about some of these examples and some of these discussion questions I'm going to show you, feel free to share what you want to share, but also remember that, I'm not a licensed therapist, even though there are some here in the congregation. So what I do want to do is to share with you a couple of discussion starters that appeared in a booklet I put together during the COVID pandemic when we couldn't be together. I called it the 10 Days, where each of the 10 days of the high holidays had a different theme and a reading and some thought questions, perhaps to spark discussion at home with a small circle of people that you could spend time with. And so we're going to look at a few of those discussion topics. This was the third day of that listing. This is that passage from Maimonides, Laws on Repentance. He writes, "Repentance in the Day of Atonement only atone for sins between a person and God, such as one who ate forbidden food. But violations between people, for instance, one injures a neighbor or curses a neighbor or plunders them, are never resolved unless one makes restitution for what one owes and begs the forgiveness of the neighbor. Even if one makes restitution for monetary debt, one must still pacify them and ask for forgiveness. Even if one only hurt the neighbor with words, one must appease them and ask them until one is forgiven. If the neighbor refuses, one should bring a committee of 3 friends to ask the neighbor. If they still refuse, one should bring a second, even a third committee. It is forbidden for a person to be cruel and unforgiving, for he should be easily appeased and slow to anger. When a sinner implores one for pardon, One should grant pardon wholeheartedly and deeply. Even if someone persecuted one and greatly sinned against one should not be vengeful and grudge-bearing, and instead follow the path of those with excellent heart. Difficult standard, for sure. So the questions I offered, and I'm interested in your thoughts if you're willing to share. Do some relationships in your life need repair? And what would you need to start that process? Sure.
Well, I think courage is a big part of it. Obviously recognizing what it is that you want to repair, but it's just not easy to first acknowledge that there's a need to repair and to go to another person and voice it and work through it. And it sounds wonderful, but personally, I would find it hard to do. So I'd need more encouragement and rereading the passages, I guess.
Yes. So courage might be a key element for that. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I can't imagine going back the next day with two more people or, oh, I'm bringing up to say, I'm sorry. If you didn't accept the apology right away, I would just, I would just say, okay. That was something bullying. Oh, you don't accept my apology. I'm going to bring up my friends.
So it's adding pressure to accept the apology. Well, you have to wonder, how genuine is acceptance in that context when you've got peer pressure, social pressure to do that. On the other hand, if you're apologizing to someone else in front of other people watching you apologize, that's a stress on you, as the person apologizing and acknowledging in a public forum that you failed. That's hard to do too. So it's peer pressure to you, the apologizer, as well as peer pressure to the one you're hoping will forgive you.
I have an example on a more personal level. When I was in my 20s, I was married to a woman for 9 months. So that was 46 years ago. Happily married now for 42 years. And I think I wasn't ready to be married. And I think, I don't know that I owed an apology, but I owed an explanation. And so what I needed to start the process was time and an overture to reach out, which I did last week. Unfortunately, as I was headed up to Madison, she became ill and got hospitalized, so we never met. But the phone call back and forth to tell me she couldn't meet was reparative for both of us. The way she responded to me and the way I responded to her, I think we both were able to repair that relationship from so many years earlier. So we didn't actually need to meet, we just needed to talk, but it was time.
Right.
That's the process.
So the second question, how many attempts to apologize are you willing to make if the relationship is important? And I know people who have very painful relationship dynamics in their close family who reach out every year on a birthday or around Yom Kippur or whenever they've decided is the time to do it, to say, I'm still sorry, I'm still here, I still care about you, the door is open if you want to talk. And sometimes the 5th time or the 10th time, it works. And sometimes it's radio silence. Maybe you have to do it for yourself, even if they're not willing to reciprocate. And I've told the story before. I had a bride at a wedding where her father refused to attend the wedding. And she had invited him, she had called him, she had emailed him, they had traveled to Florida to personally ask him to come, and he refused to come. And on the day of the wedding, she had a great time. And I saw her smiling before the ceremony when we signed the ketubah, and she said, you know what? I'm not going to let him ruin my celebration. This is a joyous day. This is on him to not be here, that he's not here. And I'm going to, be able to celebrate this without focused on that. And it was really a wonderful example of that. She had done everything she could do, and in the end, it was up to him. So maybe that's part of that calculus of how many attempts you make, is at some point it's on them, and you can release yourself from feeling extra guilt, or doing it annually as a way of reminding yourself to do better and hopefully to remind them that you're trying. But that's one of those open-ended questions. And then the last question is, why do we sometimes have trouble apologizing and making amends, even if we admit to ourselves that we were wrong? So we know we did something wrong. Why is it hard to go to someone else and make that admission? I suspect it's because you make yourself vulnerable. You're going to the person that you did wrong, and then you say, I messed up. And they could say, yeah, you did. And now you owe me, and now you deserve this. They might yell at you and are justified because you've admitted that you did something wrong. So it's dangerous. It's risky to our sense of self, our ego, our emotions. It makes us vulnerable. On the other hand, sometimes making ourselves vulnerable diffuses things. I hate to use this example, but it's the one that came to mind. When an animal like rolls on its back and shows you its stomach and just says, I give, I surrender. Sometimes when you're in a conflict with someone and you say, you know what, you're right, I was wrong, I messed up, the level goes down because you've said to them, you were right. You lift them up, it lowers you down, and they feel better. And maybe it's a way of bridging over. So sometimes it takes that courage, it takes that risk of rolling on our back, metaphorically, and saying, I was wrong. But it's hard to do. It's hard to admit to ourselves that we were wrong, because that affects our sense of self. But it's also, I think, hard to make ourselves vulnerable to someone else who might have a real angry place in their heart thinking of us. So let's take a look at one or two more. This is number 8. It was on forgiving yourself. Oh, and there's a comment in the chat. I'm sorry I missed. Reflecting on all of this, someone said, I already went to therapy today. True story. Repair does not mean reconciliation. We're actually going to talk about that in a little bit. Apology is more than I'm sorry. Apology is action. And love is also an action. So maybe you show a desire to move forward in a kind of apology by expressing love to those people. And that helps to sort of provide scar tissue or Band-Aid or some kind of coverage to the wound. So this is a poem called Head of the Year. The moon is dark tonight, a new moon for a new year. It is hollow and hungers to be full. It is the black zero of beginning. Now you must void yourself of injuries, insults, incursions. Go with empty hands to those you have hurt and make amends. It is not too late. It is early and about to grow. Now is the time to do what you know you must and have feared to begin. Your face is dark, too, as you turn inward to face yourself, the hidden twin of all you must grow to be. Forgive the dead year. Forgive yourself. What will be wants to push through your fingers. The light you seek hides in your belly. The light you crave longs to stream from your eyes. You are the moon that will wax in new goodness. So the moon is a metaphor for growing in goodness and light, but also a new beginning and letting go of the past and being able to move forward and to forgive yourself, but also to do what you know you need to do. So the first question I posed, why can it be harder to forgive ourselves than to forgive others? Maybe that's not your experience, but for some people, it's harder to forgive ourselves than it is to forgive others. Why do you think that might be? Sorry? Perfectionism, maybe? We have higher standards for ourselves. We might cut others slack, but not us. I think there's a stewing that we do. We replay the episode again and again in our mind. Oh, I could have done this. I should have done that. The other person may have forgotten. They might not even remember what happened back then, but we have made it more important to us. It circles back in our mind and our guilt. We have other experiences that make us feel the same way, and it brings us back to that first moment as an emotional pattern, as an emotional hook. They may not be rationally connected, those two events, but we feel the same way in those moments, and it brings us back to that other failure. I think maybe also some of us are just hard on ourselves. You know, we don't let it go when it's our failure. You can think to yourself, if you have actually succeeded in forgiving yourself for a failure, what that was, and why that was successful, and why that stuck, why that worked. And maybe that experience becomes a model for looking back at other failings. And then the last question, if you had this experience, how did you grow from a previous experience of self-forgiveness? Sure, Judy.
I think I've changed, I'm 78 years old, so I don't think I've changed.
Okay. Well, maybe you still are in that pattern of woulda, coulda, shoulda. I'll tell you one thing I did. I figured out how to not make the same mistake again. I did a wedding once. It was probably one of my first 50 weddings. I think I'm up at about 410 now. But in my first, maybe even my first 30 weddings, I made a mistake. I was not careful, and I wrote down the groom's name wrong, like his first name wrong. I just had the wrong first name written down. And so when I referred to him, I used the wrong name. They corrected me, and I sort of tried to make a joke to laugh it off. And the family was very upset. And entirely reasonably so, that I was not careful enough, that it looked like I didn't know them well enough. In this case, it was a co-officiated wedding with the priest. So the Jewish family was particularly mad that the rabbi looked worse than the priest did, because there's a rivalry, you know, maybe between the families. But I resolved I was never going to make that mistake again. And so every time I write a wedding, I put the name of the couple at the top of the page. And I double check the form they filled out in their handwriting, what the name was. So I make sure, and I even ask them before the wedding, if they have a name that goes to nicknames, do you want the nickname or do you want the full name? And sometimes people want the full name. I had one couple where the groom said, for the wedding, I want you to call me Michael. And she looked at him and said, who's Michael? Because he's Mike to everybody. But for the wedding, he wanted the, fine. But what I did was I put a system in place to make sure the mistake didn't happen again. And so I don't feel guilty most of the time. I don't feel guilty about that early wedding where I made that mistake, because it's also 25 years ago. But what I do is try to fix it going forward, so I don't make that same mistake again. That has helped in thinking about that past moment and giving myself some grace and self-forgiveness. So the last one to think about, this is on page 9 of that booklet. It's about forgiving others. This author, Jose Hobde, I am of Native American descent, Seneca, Iroquois, and Seminole, and I felt discrimination all of my life on this land. I've listened to the stories and read of the atrocities, executions, starvation, and genocide committed against my people. History gives us many accounts of these afflictions. Many others around the world have suffered terrible indignities as well. But the words of my Seneca mother to me when I was badly wronged and wanted revenge and retaliation stay with me. Do not be so ignorant and stupid and inhuman as they are. Go to an elder and ask for the medicine that will turn your heart from bitterness to sweetness. You must learn the wisdom of how to let go of poison. Forgetting and forgiveness may seem to be two different things, but I believe they are of a piece. Every time you remember a wrong, you are asked to forgive it. From my experience, wrongs will return to the mind for years and years and years. Each recall asks for forgiveness, and you stay in the power of that act until you let go. Compassion is all-embracing, extending to all creation, to plants and to animals, including the two-legged variety. Forgiveness is of the heart. No one, no memory should have the power to hold us down, to deny us peace. Forgiving is the real power. Have you ever forgiven someone else in order to move forward with your own life? Many of us have. Have you ever asked someone for forgiveness and not received it? And they kept bearing the grudge. Some of us have, maybe some of us haven't. And the hardest aspect of forgiving someone else, I think it's letting go of the feelings, personally. That's how I'd answer that question. Because anger can be deeply rooted. And you can flash back to how you felt in an instant when you think of that event. That anger can be ever in the present. So I find at least the hardest aspect of truly forgiving, of being willing to move forward, again, it's not forgetting. It's being willing to move forward. But I find the emotions sometimes are the hardest part.
We had a hard time with getting and forgiveness may seem two different things, but I believe they're the same. I mean, I think I can, you know, in some situations, what you did was wrong. I know it was wrong. You know it was wrong. I can't forget it, but I forgive you, meaning I'm not going to let it have the power over our relationship. I'm not going to keep holding it against you. I can understand, but I don't forget it.
Yeah. That's what he says near the end. He says, no one, no memory should have the power to hold us down or deny us peace. Right? We are able to move forward, and that puts us in the position of power instead of letting them own our lives.
A very wise person once told me that anger destroys the vessel that carries it. And a lot of times the person doesn't even know what they've done. And it's eating you up, and they're not even aware of it. So you have to learn to let go and tell them about it.
Sure. Sure. Well, we've entered this month of Elul, and this month is an opportunity to repair connections. One of the rabbinic commentaries talking about the meaning of this time of the year points out that the word Elul could be an abbreviation for a phrase out of the Hebrew Bible Song of Songs, Ani ledodi v'dodi li. So the Elul would be Ani ledodi v'dodi li. And that line means, I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine. It's that connection to people we care about. Maybe Elul is the time to repair those connections, to deepen those connections, to highlight those connections. Or maybe it's just a space without Jewish obligation that gives us a space to think. Have you ever had a day where all of a sudden both appointments cancel and you have a day all to yourself with no obligations and no appointments? What a joy. In Hebrew, you'd call it a machaya, from the word chaim. It's like a re-enlivening moment, to have a space to just do something for yourself. That's what Elul could be. It could be that opportunity to connect, to reconnect, and to deepen our sense of self. And so the last example I want to give you is on page 7 here. It's about the importance of time by Marcia Falk. We use it, wisely or not. We fill it and mark it. We try to stop it, but there is no end to it, and yet we never have enough. It is a circle, and it is a line, Moving forward day by day, year by year, we come around and round again. Again the spring, again the fall, but every leaf a new one, every fall a new shape of falling. Always starting, never finished. We live always in the in-between. No time, we say, we have no time. Yet we have all the time in the world, and there is no time like now. Well, I hope you enjoyed this exploration of the possibilities of Elul, of asking for forgiveness, of offering forgiveness, and of grappling with our own failings and possible successes.